Hello everyone. The late Jurassic was an age when immense sauropods filled the floodplains, stegosaurs moved under heavy armor, and in the shadows of vast forests roamed predators no other animal could withstand. At the top stood Allosaurus and Torvosaurus, with razor-edged teeth and jaws powerful enough to shear bone. They were not just hunters. They were the living keystones that set the balance of the ecosystem. Yet the fossil record shows that this grand tableau changed abruptly. In the Morrison Formation and in other rock sequences of the same age, the remains of these two predators rapidly thin out and then vanish. There is no gradual tapering, as if a page of history simply closes and the next contains no mention of them. This disappearance coincides across a broad region. So how did the rulers of the late Jurassic vanish so quickly? Before searching for answers, we need to look more closely at their world. Allosaurus, averaging about 8.5 meters long and up to 2.5 tons, was one of the most agile apex predators of its time. Its muscular hind limbs were built to pursue prey at high speed, and its long, powerful tail acted as a counterbalance for quick turns. The joints within its skull allowed slight lateral flex when it bit, letting the teeth cut from different angles. Each tooth had serrated, saw-like edges sharp enough to score bone and shred muscle, causing severe blood loss. Its killing strategy emphasized devastating wounds over sheer crushing force. Prey often wasn't felled instantly, but weakened by repeated slashing. This points to a patient, tactical hunter. Torvosaurus hunted differently. Exceeding 10 meters in length and weighing roughly 3 tons, it is bulkier, slower, but unstoppable when it struck. Compared with Allosaurus, it had fewer teeth, but with deeper roots and great durability. Teeth that were far less likely to break. With a sudden, forceful snap, its jaws could deliver bone-splintering pressure. Its forelimbs, though short, were powerfully muscled, ending in inward-curving, grasping claws that clamped like a vice, leaving little chance for a captured animal to escape. Both were apex predators. Their prey included long-necked giants like Diplodocus, armored stegosaurs, and smaller herbivores. Bite marks in the fossil record show they were not only active hunters, but also opportunistic scavengers. As for how they hunted, opinions differ. Some lines of evidence suggest lion-like cooperation. Adults slowing massive prey, while swifter, more agile juveniles delivered the finishing blows. Others argue for largely solitary hunters that formed temporary alliances when they happened upon the same opportunity. Even where Morrison bone beds contain multiple individuals together, the data aren't decisive, but the age diversity within some assemblages makes division of labor in hunts plausible. With these traits, Allosaurus and Torvosaurus shaped the late Jurassic ecosystem. Their presence regulated not only prey numbers, but migration routes, the structure of plant communities, and even the ranges of other carnivores. Yet, a system this powerful could be fragile, vulnerable to a single critical change. To track that change, we have to examine the geography of their time. Their world's land and sea were arranged very differently from today. During the late Jurassic, Pangaea still existed, but was irreversibly breaking apart. Slow, steady rifting opened new seaways along continental margins, letting ocean waters spill into the interior. Long, narrow marine channels formed at the edges, while broad, deep basins developed inland. Much of the landmass stretched across the equatorial belt. Here, kilometers of arid deserts lay in stark, sharp-edged contrast to humid, forested valleys, so sharply that a single step could take you from red, dry ground into dense, shaded vegetation. Coastal areas with tidal flats and marshes created rich habitats where marine and terrestrial life overlapped. Climate alternated between warm, humid phases and drier intervals. Monsoon-like rainfall patterns filled seasonal lakes in some regions, while others endured long droughts. This climatic mosaic directly shaped herbivore migrations and, in turn, the hunting strategies of predators. One of the clearest consequences of Pangaea's breakup is seen in western North America with the retreat of the Sundance Sea. For millions of years, this shallow sea extended far inland, nurturing marshes, coastal lagoons, and wide deltas. Toward the end of the late Jurassic, it slowly withdrew, leaving behind broad alluvial plains and open, herb-rich lowlands dominated by conifers, cycads, and ferns. This altered not only vegetation, but the routes taken by migrating herbivores. As open habitats expanded, long-necked sauropods shifted to new feeding grounds, and Allosaurus and Torvosaurus followed, reshaping their hunting territories. Climate drew the boundaries of this ecosystem. Near coasts, conditions were more humid and mild. Inland, deserts brought aridity and stronger seasonal temperature swings. Monsoon-like rhythms periodically flooded certain regions, then gave way to months of dryness. These swings produced surges and declines in plant cover, and with them seasonal rises and falls in herbivore populations. The ranges of Allosaurus and Torvosaurus increasingly clustered along the seams where these climatic zones met. Open lowlands favored speed and long sightlines. Forested valleys provided perfect cover for ambush. But the Sundance Sea's retreat and the rifting of Pangaea weren't merely geographical shifts. Deep, tectonic forces set in motion still more dramatic processes. The subduction of the Farallon Plate beneath North America initiated a new mountain-building episode known as the Nevada orogeny, triggering sustained volcanic activity for hundreds of kilometers. Rising magma built towering cones whose eruptions lofted ash clouds that darkened skies for months. Winds carried the ash thousands of kilometers. Mingled with rain, it yielded sulfuric and nitric acids that fell as acid rain. These burned plant leaves, altered soil chemistry, and upset the pH balance of freshwater lakes. The impact reached far beyond physical damage. In the Morrison Formation, thin, widespread ash layers still testify to the scale of these eruptions. Some layers contain toxic metals such as arsenic, mercury, and lead. Plants absorb these elements through their roots. Herbivores accumulated them in their tissues, and predators inherited the burden up the food chain. The stresses of climate and habitat change struck first at the bottom of the food web. Shrinking forage, shifting migrations, and irregular water supplies drove visible declines in large herbivore populations. Diplodocus and its kin had to travel greater distances to feed. Armored stegosaurs, squeezed into narrower habitats, adopted more defensive behaviors. As the principal food base for top predators thinned, the survival odds of apex hunters fell. The collapse of the food chain also unraveled the ecosystem's balance. With fewer large herbivores, plant cover persisted longer, increasing erosion and degrading water quality. Disrupted plant and water cycles further weakened the remaining herbivores, tightening the noose around apex predators. Rising competition made clashes between big hunters inevitable. With hunting grounds contracting, herbivores dwindling, and the food web destabilizing, Allosaurus and Torvosaurus more often pursued the same prey. These confrontations weren't always brief chases that ended without blood. Some Allosaurus bones from the Morrison bear deep, irregular bite marks, fossilized evidence of violent encounters. Many of these wounds show no healing, implying the attacks were fatal. Battles were not limited to fights between different species. Within the same species, especially among adult males, individuals fought openly for food and mates. Under poor feeding conditions, these struggles intensified. Wounded or weakened animals became targets for rivals and sometimes were killed and consumed by members of their own species. Such intraspecific cannibalism, beyond mere opportunism, signals an ecosystem under heavy strain, one in which a predator population begins to consume itself. Each death reduced genetic diversity, lowered reproductive potential, and slowed population recovery. In a stressed ecosystem, weakened populations become vulnerable to enemies they cannot see: disease, parasites, and other biological crises. Fossils rarely preserve viruses or bacteria, but they can record their effects. Abnormal bone growth, non-healed fractures, and traces of inflammation point to compromised immune systems. Deformations seen in some Allosaurus bones suggest chronic infections or metabolic disorders that would have dulled hunting ability, prolonged recovery, and left individuals more susceptible to predation or to starvation. Like modern predators ranging widely to find food, individuals congregating at scarce water sources or carcasses would have made disease transmission easier. Heavy metals released by eruptions, arsenic and mercury among them, could have compounded this biological pressure by suppressing immunity, lowering fertility, and weakening resistance to illness. Parasitism, too, belongs on the list of pressures. In warm, humid regions, blood-feeding arthropods and intestinal parasites drain energy and can trigger lethal infections over time. Even in modern ecosystems, dense predator populations can be ideal incubators for parasites. Disease alone doesn't fully explain the disappearance, but in a population already thinned by hunger and conflict, it is one of the swiftest mechanisms for mass mortality. As these pressures converged, new predators were poised to occupy the vacant apex roles. Smaller, more agile theropods, ceratosaurids, and early relatives of later agile lineages gained advantages through quick reactions and flexible hunting strategies. They weren't dependent on the largest prey. They could target smaller herbivores, juvenile sauropods, and scavenge whenever possible. These rivals stood out not just for speed, but for behavior. Small groups could coordinate attacks that efficiently brought down animals even larger predators struggled with. Ceratosaurids, with robust jaws and stout teeth, may have specialized on more heavily armored prey, directly competing with the favored food sources of Allosaurus and Torvosaurus. The fossil record preserves hints of this contest. Healed bite marks, broken bones, and interlaced tooth traces from different species point to direct conflict among carnivores. For large predators already living on thin energy margins, such confrontations could mean fatal injuries or long-term disability. Evolutionarily, the consequences were clear. Smaller, faster hunters adapted more readily to shifting climates and fluctuating prey numbers, while high-energy specialists focused on giant prey proved more brittle. In only a few generations, the crown of top predator could change heads. The old balance ruled by Allosaurus and Torvosaurus was gone. A different power structure took hold. Herbivore communities transformed as well. As giant sauropods waned, shorter-necked, faster breeding forms, iguanodonts and small ornithopods became more common. Increasing plant diversity favored these adaptable newcomers. Ecotones, transition zones between open lowlands and wooded tracts, offered rich resources for both predators and prey. How do we read this dramatic transformation millions of years later? Present theories explain parts of why Allosaurus and Torvosaurus disappeared, but not the whole story. By nature, the fossil record is incomplete, leaving us to reconstruct a narrative full of missing pages. Even in fossil-rich regions like the Morrison Formation, only a tiny fraction of the original ecosystem is preserved. To bridge the gaps, researchers use ever more advanced methods. Isotope ratios in bone reveal clues to diet and migration. 3D digital modeling lets us infer healing times for fractures and test predator-prey interactions. Geochemical scans of volcanic ash layers help reconstruct ancient atmospheric conditions. We may one day resolve the fine details of this ecological upheaval through new technologies and yet undiscovered fossil sites. What we can say with confidence today is this: the rulers of the late Jurassic left behind enigmatic traces and then abruptly exited the stage.